Let's move on before I end the show. The show's running a little long this week, but, honestly, there really is some good stuff. And I would like to talk about one more topic that came up this week, and it's another health problem, but it's with Oscar.
Okay. So, one cannot really look up their own nose. It's tough to do.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Depends
at
on
that
the
point,
drugs you're using.
I yell to Shannon. I say, "Hey, bring me your iPhone."
Okay, so is it breathing? You're having trouble breathing?
I'm not having trouble breathing. I've never felt this type of pain in my
It's
life.
feel
in
like
my
congestion?
face. No, congestion's fine. I'll take that for days.
Pain?
This is pain,
Ooh.
and it's so much pain that I
like a
feel
burning
it. I
or
feel
a-
it in my gums.
Wow.
So
And
I
did you
didn't know
feel
what was
any
going
of
on.
it Friday night, or did it
I
all?
felt a little bit on Friday night.
Okay.
So she takes a picture of what is happening inside my nose.
Now that's a good woman right there. You
Yes.
know, I fell in love with your lady a little bit this weekend at the baby shower for all the sweetness that she bestowed upon my lady, and I think that's great. Any woman that's going to take a picture of the inside of your nose, that's a love situation.
Well, it's not something that's fun, and I was embarrassed to do it, but I said, I got to find out what's happening.
And
right
if Josh was here, he'd say, "Man, if somebody took a picture of the inside of my nose, I'd never bone again."
now, I don't have to show you this to explain what was going on in my septum,
I'm starting to get all queasy now.
I have a guess, but I'm going to hold my guess.
but I can show it to anybody that wants to see
I'll like
it.
to see it.
Rob, I'll let you explain what you're looking at right now.
Well, for
Oh
one
my
thing, you
God.
should be taking allergy medicine.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It looks to me like you have coarse, thick black nose hair. Is it an ingrown hair?
It's not an ingrown hair.
It's some sort of pustule that has grown
Okay, I
inside
don't
your
want to see
nose.
it. I really,
Oh
I don't.
my
I seriously, I won't be able to.
But
do
man,
the show.
that isn't a. You
I'm
know
not
what?
going to be able to do the show if I look at it.
I know it doesn't really.
I'm really going to throw up. I'm really going to.
This
throw up.
really doesn't cater to the American
Oh.
public, but that is a great advert for the phone and the iPhone camera.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
yeah.
fantastic
Detail.
picture.
I don't want to see it.
These guys are falling apart all over the place. I mean, each one of these guys has some sort of ailment, disease, something's not quite right. There's a lot of illness that goes around with this group of guys. It's like a kindergarten school around TMOS. But Greg, I'll ask you this from the aspect of Oscar's nose. When you listen to Mike and he gets all, I'm going to throw up, I'm getting all queasy. Did you listen to this week's bonus show where Mike is going
Yes.
on and on about the various breaks, the various injuries he's had, and he's going into it in such detail, yet here he's, "Oh, I'm a girl, I'm going to throw up, I can't handle it." It's just, the contrast just seemed a little weird.
It was very weird. In fact, he wanted to talk on the bonus show, and they did talk more about horrific injuries and that sort of stuff. Blood doesn't seem to faze him at all, but a little bit of pus in Oscar's nose sent him screaming. Which, by the way, how great would it have been if he blew chunks in the middle of a show?
Oh, that would have been great audio. That would have been hilarious. But he has such a problem with pus. His teenage years must have been hell. Could you see him in front of the mirror, like gagging on himself? Oh my God, another one! Oh God!
The real issue, though, is how prone to infection Oscar Santana is. I mean, for a guy who takes pride in his health, so somewhat, and is keeping it tight, the slightest cactus prick or failure to groom, he's on antibiotics. I mean, what's up with that?
I don't think that was a slight cactus prick. He actually high-fived a cactus. I mean, that was pretty significant. Will, did you hear that?
Sorry, I was dealing with the chat room.
What? Are you part of this show or not? What are you doing?
Well, for a while there, you had me muted after the last thing I said, so
Yeah,
I kind
that's
of,
true.
I sort of figured that I should just deal with the chat room people and let the adults talk.
Well, you were looking at me like it was like, oh, I got something to share. People
Well,
I count on these days. Anyway.
There was a comment about cactus pricks, and I really didn't think you wanted me to go there.
Nice. Well, again, like I said, it was just funny, the contrast of listening to Mike on this week's bonus show, which I think is a really great bonus show. If you do have a weak stomach, probably not the best one for you, but it was a very entertaining one because it organically started to grow, because they all started with that question of what was the worst injury you may have had, and they all said, well, I don't really remember, I really didn't have one. But then as the show went on, it just got worse and worse and worse until the point it felt like, hey, you see the scar over here? I got this scar when I got knifed in Nam. You know, they were like trying to one up each other.
Yeah, and it was organic. You know, even it's sitting listening to it, I'm trying to think, well, how would I answer that question? And I could think of one thing, and I thought, oh, you know, what about this? Because they talk about injuries and then witnessing horrific events, and I never thought it went over the top that, you know, anybody would normally get queasy. And of course, the show starts with a totally different feel, and it's hilarious the way that they start out the show, and you played the clip at the top of the show where he's doing the impression. Really, really entertaining bonus hour. But you're right. It's even as I was sitting here, I started remembering other things, other horrific events. I mean, we just kind of push them to the side. And these guys were doing the same thing. Oh, yeah, you know, that reminds me. And suddenly the guy who said, well, I've never really had anything bad happen to me was remembering all kinds of horrible things by the end of the show. Absolutely.
And speaking of that impression that he was doing of Hugh, and I can't remember his last name now, but that impression of the old reporter from New York, I think that is now my favorite impression. It may be because of the newness, but he ran with it, and it was the earwig in his head during that one episode, and he just went on, and I was laughing throughout like a hyena. It was ridiculous.
The last name wasn't Quinn, but we just made somebody really happy by using that name. So
Quinn?
Hugh Quinn?
Hugh Quinn?
Yeah.
Hugh from Rochester.
Exactly.
Nice. Well, so he's in the chat room. It's nice to see Hugh show up. He didn't call in. Thanks for nothing. But, you know, again, going back to what I was talking about, my favorite impression from Mike being this guy, Hugh. Greg, how about you? What is your favorite impression of Mike's?
Oh, wow. He riffed on it, and it was great, which reminds you of the good old days of Don and Mike, where they had 4 hours to fill and they would just run off on something like that. I've always been a fan of Internet Radio Tommy. That was the first character they had on the podcast. I still love IRT, and that's one of my favorites. I mean, there's so many that Mike does that are great. If I gotta pick one, it's probably that one. But Schwarzenegger and Marion Barry, and the Metro driver, which is so spot on.
Right.
But I'm always got a soft spot in my heart for IRT, because I was Internet Radio Tommy, because that was really the first one that they had on the podcast and was unique to that.
I have missed IRT, as you put it. We haven't heard much of IRT in quite a while. I would love to hear another IRT coming up. But Hugh, I'm sorry, what was the name again? You got it out of the chat room, Will.
Herb Welch.
Herb Welch. And
Amy Taylor gave it to us in case you want to give credit.
Well, thanks, Amy. I appreciate that. But the Herb Welch impression is so freaking funny. But listening to the episode where he was going on and on with it, there came a point where the boys got back to topic, started talking, and Rob made a comment and then ended it with, "How about that, Hugh?" Which then put Mike right back on track of doing the impression again. This is that playoff that we love so much with these guys. And, let's take it back to that first topic when we were talking about, Buzz leaving the show. We haven't lost the show. This organicness, this ability for these boys to play off each other is still there, and we're still going to get it. We do have something missing, but I think that in the long term, we're all going to be just fine.
Yeah.
We just got to give it time, get used to it a little bit. And, we all love Buzz. And for those who love him more because of the fact that we're left-leaning, those conservative people, not so much. go watch All the Buzz on Buzz Burbank on Facebook and check him out and find out what he's up to next. You got something, Will? Quit doing that then. Quit leaning toward the microphone. I got to teach this boy some